Hi, I'm Annick from Girls Gotta Invest, and I'm delighted to have with me today Maxime, who is the CEO and founder of Wine Funding, which is a platform that allows direct investing into wine estates. Then we also have Charlotte with us. She's the business development manager of Wine Funding, as well as Agnès, a serial female wine funder. Now, today will be a very sharp and short session on wine investing. First, I'll grill Charlotte and Maxime a bit on wine investing. Then we'll move on to testimonials from Agnès, and then we'll open the floor to questions. So if you plan to ask any questions, I reckon it's best to use the chat function, which is in the middle of your Zoom screen at the bottom. So let's kick it off. Maybe Maxime, if you could start by telling us, why do you think wine is a unique investment opportunity?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Annick, for to welcome me on this session. Yeah, I think it's a unique opportunity because it can be an investment, but I think it's the investment that has the most taste, because it has the taste of wine. So I think it's more than just numbers. We should not forget the numbers. I think it's very important to keep in mind that you should not only invest because it's pleasant, but you must look at the numbers. But you can also have a lot more flavors in your investment than just in stocks. In the stock market.
Great. So how does wine investing actually differ from traditional investing in stocks and shares?
It is, like I said, it has more flavor, I believe, but also in terms of access, I think it's quite different. Until now, it was very easy for everyone, and most people around here probably have already invested in the stock market. And then it's fairly straightforward. Anyone can access the stock market. However, with the wine industry, it's more difficult to know how to invest and where to invest. And I think that's the main difference is the accessibility until now. Now it's more easy. And now we have different ways to invest in the wine industry.
So that's actually quite interesting. So what are the different ways you can invest today in wine, actually?
I think the first one that is maybe more widely spread already for 10, 20 years, more than 20 years, is investment in wine bottles, in stocks of wine, inventories of wine, mostly Grand Cru, meaning that it's wine that are bankable, tradable, that have a value that is recognized on the market. And this is the most common form of investing in wine. And there are very good companies doing this out there. So this is also something that we don't do at Wine Funding. But I think it's important to talk about it because it's probably the most widely spread kind of investment in wine. And maybe some of the participants here have already invested. Some companies include in the UK Cult Wines. Maybe some of you know about them. And they have good returns and good selection and good advice. Other ones in France is Cabissima. There are different companies out there, and they are doing a very good job at it. So that's not something I wanted to do because I think it's already done. And what we do at Wine Funding is another kind of investment. We're not investing in wine bottles of Grand Cru. We are investing in the companies themselves. So this is something completely different. It's like investing in the business. That's what we do. And the other form that we talked before is investing in the product.
I see. Okay. So let's talk about the money. What are the typical returns one can get in investing in the wine business? Maybe if we compare it to just normal wine or versus property or stocks. So what are the typical returns you can get?
The return, like you know, since you work in finance like many people here, depends also on the level of risk. So depending on the level of risk of the company, if we have, for example, a quite stable company with a lot of land on its balance sheet, it will be considered as less risky, depending on the configuration of the business, on its ability to command a high price on the market and to be profitable. So this will be the type of safer investment in a wine company, the return can be between 4 or 5%. If it's really very safe, it can be 2 to 3%. If it's only in the land, if it's in a company that's producing, we can go up to 4, 5, or 6%. And then we have sometimes investment in companies that are more with an industrial perspective, with the potential for growth that is higher, but also it comes with a higher risk. And these are companies like wine merchants or wine distributors. We have invested in a company in the US who has a very innovative way of distributing wine through subscription with AI involved. So it's a very innovative scheme. And this is a company that can ramp up much and scale at a much higher rate. So it bears a lot more risk. So the return can be higher, 10 to 20%.
I see. Okay.
I think it really depends. Like normal, I would say, like normal businesses, it will depend on the level of risk of the business in which you invest.
Yeah. Okay. And so I understand that wine funding has 3 models. So maybe Charlotte, you can explain us the 3 models of wine funding.
Exactly. So as Annick was saying, we have 3 models that will each depend, firstly, on one side, on the value of the project. And secondly, the amounts that you can invest in will vary depending on the scale of the project. So you can invest simply from smaller projects and invest only €100 to larger projects where you can invest 1,000 or maybe 2,000 euros, a lot more. So the good thing is that there's a great flexibility and diversity on the amount that you can invest. So for starters, as you can see in the slide that Maxime is sharing with you, the first model is the wine payback. Now here you advance a sum of money to a company, a wine estate, to finance their project. Now this could be, for example, purchase of a vineyard, the construction of a winery, or the purchase of new equipment. And then what happens then is then the wine estate will pay you back in bottles of wine, which will be delivered to your home over several years. So depending on the package you choose, it could be a one-off shot, or it could be over a 3-year period or a 5-year period. And some estates even have the possibility of overnight stays. So you could also be paid back in an overnight stay at the actual wine estate, which is actually a great way to be able to get to know the winemaker and maybe taste more of their wines at the property. And our second model is the wine bond. So here, for example, contributions are set at a minimum of €1,000 and could go up to €10,000. And so what happens here is that you lend a sum of money to a wine estate to finance their project, and then they will reimburse you the principal in euros over several years, and the interest, which is 8%, is paid to you in bottles of wine, which are also delivered to your home over each year, and depending obviously on the time frame that you've selected. And our third model is the wine equity. So in this model, you invest in the capital of the company, and so you become a shareholder. And this allows you to purchase the wine of the estate at a discounted price and to receive dividends and also the capital gain when the project is exited. Now, obviously, as the current system is based, some of these investment projects do allow tax benefits, but at the time being, these are exclusive to French taxpayers.
Yeah, so these are thank you, Charlotte. Exactly the 3 models that we have set. We only started for your records with equity, and then we invented these different models. The wine bond, to my knowledge, we are the only one in the world to do it. So maybe it's a bad idea if we are the only one. I hope it will be copied. It will mean it's a good idea, but it's new. So I only started this 2 years ago. So the wine bond was quite new. And the next, we will have after illustration with a business case that we have to illustrate these 3 models. And the 4th model that I just want to quickly share with you, because some of you might be interested, is something we are still working on. It's called the blockchain, like most of you know. And the idea is to raise funds with the blockchain. We're not talking about the usage of the application of blockchain to traceability and all of this. This is also there's a high potential for traceability via blockchain in the wine world. But we're just talking about raising funds. This is just crowdfunding 2.0. The blockchain will allow us to have a wider reach and raise probably larger amount of money. So this is just in the pipeline of our R&D project, but this is something we really want to do. The problem is that the blockchain, the ICO had a bad year in the past 2 years. So we are still waiting. And also the problem is that to convince wine estates to go and use this type of model that is completely new, they're a bit scared. Even when I started wine funding alone, they didn't know what crowdfunding was about. That was 5 years ago. And it was difficult for them even to accept shareholders within the company. This is something they were very reluctant to do because the business, the wine estate has been in the family for 5-10 generations. Accepting outside investors was something very weird. And after giving a lot of conference and explanation, I wrote 2 books about it, which you can buy online. They are only in French, I'm sorry. But to explain how it works. And actually now we've managed to convince, and it's I think the snowball effect, it will pick up because they need to see some of their pairs to do the same type of investment with wine funding, and then they say, okay, if this one I know him is doing it, then it's very reassuring. And now we see it. At the beginning, it was like, who is this guy, Maxime, coming from nowhere? Crowdfunding, I've never heard of it. What is this? Now it's becoming new. So we're also getting a lot more traction in terms of a new project in the pipeline. So that's quite exciting because now we will be able to offer even better project. Just to share you an idea of the key metrics on wine funding, talking about this, we have received over 400, now we have 450, this slide is a few months old, 450 requests from different wine companies. We've selected 20, now we have 22. Sorry, I need to update this slide. So it's a very small number of projects that we select. And for this project, we've raised so far over 4 million euros for this 20 project. Just to give you key metrics about wine funding.
So you brought a couple of case studies now to explain.
Sure. I think I will follow I think it would be convenient to follow the models that Charlotte explained. The first model being the Wine Payback. So this was a project that we've done in the Côte du Rhône in France. Chêne Bleu, I don't know if some of you know this wine estate. It's a beautiful wine estate in a 70-hectare property that is completely remote from any pollution and everything. It's organically managed. And they wanted to, like you see when you see my mouse, on the right, to implement beehives around the vineyard to have to help with the biodiversity and to use also the product, the honey and the propolis, all the byproducts of the honey into wine, vineyard management and wine treatment. So they have lots of experiments doing this, and they wanted to finance this small project, 20,000 euros. Actually, we raised over 30,000 at the end. It was very successful. People loved it. What were the investors getting? This is what I'm going to go through. We offer different packages. The idea is that anyone can invest depending on how much they're prepared to invest. This project started at 50 euro. So you could, if you invest only 50 euro, you receive only a couple of bottles of wine. And you can invest up to 1,000 euros. Then you will have a stay on the estate and a full case of premium wine. That will be what you will get in return. And we also have offers for groups and corporate on this project. That was quite interesting to do it because it's a big property where corporate can actually bring in their staff for a team building event. But at the moment, I think it's a bit difficult, but hopefully it will resolve soon. And the idea was to finance this initiative called Bees for Sustainable Wine Production, the research program, annual events to let people know about it. And these are the different rewards that people were getting: a bottle of wine, a jar of honey. Then you have more wine if you contribute more, and you can have a stay on the estate. And that if you have a group, you can have a full package with 15 participants and a workshop where you can blend the wine and things like this. So this is a small, but it's a beautiful project. It's small in the sense that it's a small amount of money. The project is only 20,000 euros. We exceeded; it was overfunded, so they will be able to do more and not use their own funds for that. So that's a good. That's a very simple case. I don't know if you have questions about this one.
I mean, my key question is: this seems all to be a bit too good to be true. So, what would be the risks involved when investing in these wine businesses?
On this model, basically, the risk is that you. It's not an investment per se, this type of product. This is a product where you just give money in cash in advance, and the company is rewarding you for this by giving you a discount on the wine. So actually, you buy the wine at a cheaper price. You receive over several years, and because you accept to pay it now to receive it for several years, you will get a discount about 20 to 30%. So for the estate, it's good because they increase loyalty of the customers, and for the customer, it's interesting because you buy the wine cheaper, and every year you receive the new vintage. So that's and it creates a real strong bond, and you follow the wine estate, and we organize live tastings with the wine estate. We organize real tasting. You can visit the estate, and you will be welcome as a wine funder, as an ambassador. You will have a privileged welcome. So that's all the nice aspect of it. And to come back to your question about the risk is that you don't receive the wine in year 2 or 3. But this risk is very limited in this case because, for example, if the winery, the wine estate is wiped out by a frost or hail, a big hailstorm, they will maybe have no crop at all. It's very unlikely because this is a 40-hectare estate, so to wipe out the whole vineyard is very risky. The risk is very low, but it can happen potentially, and we have addressed this risk by allowing the wine estate to give the investors, the wine funders, to give them a wine from a different vintage of equivalent value. So if you are investing now, you will receive the 2011. Next year, you will receive the 2012, and the year after, you will receive the okay. But if the wine is not produced a certain year, maybe also because it's not good or it was not deemed to be good enough, you will receive the previous vintage or the following vintage. So this is how we limit the risk. In this case, the risk is very limited, except if the company really goes bankrupt. But even then, we can always get some wines from the stock. On a project like this, we typically have about 100 investors. So it's always possible to find 100 cases of wine in the cellar.
I see, great.
So this is the risk regarding this model. Maybe I should move to the second model, which is can you see my screen? Mm-hmm. It's the wine bond. This is a project that is currently running on wine funding. You can invest in this wine estate, and this is like Charlotte was explaining. It's a proper bond. This is a proper financial security. You actually invest in 2019. So we started this project at the end of the year. We have raised already over 100,000, and the investment, for example, it can be 5,000 euros. Then you receive in 2020 at the end of the year 1,000 euro reimbursed, plus your wine cases delivered at home, which represent 8% interest. Okay, and then it's the same every year for 5 years. you receive 1,000 euro every year. So at the end of the 5 years, you recoup your investment of the principal of 5,000 euro, and you've enjoyed wine every year for as a value of 8% per year. So this is something that people like very much because the time horizon, as you can see, is short. Project, we do it between 4 and 5 years. So actually, it's quite short, I think, compared to other types of investment in property or in shareholders in a small company. It can be a longer term. And also, what is nice is that we try to make it amortized every year. There's a part of the principal that is paid back. So every year you reduce your risk. In the first year, you have a risk to lose 5,000 euro. Then the second year, you only have a risk to lose 4,000 euro. The third year, 3,000 euro, and etc. Every year, you reduce your exposure to losing your investment by a fourth or a fifth, depending on the duration on the maturity of the bond. And the interest is 8%. Is calculated as if you were to invest in a normal bond, in order to buy this type of wine, you would need to find a bond generating 8% per annum coupon.
I see.
The way we do it, that it's also interesting for the company, is that we convert the price of the wine at the preferred price, which so the cost for the company is less than that. This is the value for the investor. Should he buy wine with the interest of a bond? This bond should be 8%.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hi. So I was wondering, this 8% is applied to 5,000 or to 1,000 each year?
We do internal rate of return calculation on the model, because as you maybe, I don't know if you know, I don't know who is familiar with the financial modeling, but normally when you have a loan, you pay the interest on the capital that needs to be paid back, that is left to be paid back. So if we were doing that with this model, it would mean that at the beginning you would receive more bottles than at the end, which is a bit weird, and not people. And also you have the risk to receive a 3.47 bottles at the end. How do you send 3.47 bottles? It's impossible. So what we decided to do, this is how we structured this wine bond, is to, and this is by contract, everybody accepts that we actually flatten the interest that are received every year. I don't know if you're following me. Instead of receiving interest calculated on the capital that needs to be paid back, we accept to receive an average flat number of bottles every year, so that it's more convenient. So at the beginning, you're basically receiving less bottle that you should, but at the end, you receive more bottle than you should if it was normally calculated. Does it answer your question?
It does, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that might be actually a good moment to actually hear from a real wine funder. So I hear Agnès, she's been a big wine funder. So let's maybe start straight away with, did you know the vineyards in which you invested? And were you able to taste those wines before you invested, actually?
Not at all. I didn't know the vineyard. I didn't know the wine. I didn't taste it before. Taste it after, yeah, but not before. I like wines in general. I have my preference, and then at the beginning I choose some area where I know I was likely to love the wine, and but that was a very good surprise when I taste the first bottle, and then now I know I can. I think thanks to the committee who selected the wine and the project, I think, yeah, I'm quite confident when I choose a project and I say, let's go and we'll see. So no, first time, no.
So it was a success. So what are you getting from your wine funding investments today? Is it really the focus on the return, on the wine discovery, the relationships you get with producers? If you could just tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think the first thing is it's not a financial story. I mean, you know, it's more like I like wine. I was looking for some alternative investment. And then, you know, when you can have both, why not? Let's try. So yeah, and finally, with now I know that's a good way to refund my seller and to invest.
That's exactly what you need in lockdown. So how has your experience been so far with wine funding, really from the moment where you signed up to receiving the bottles?
Or even before, can I ask before? Because I don't know, Agnès, how did you come to know about wine funding?
Yeah, as I said, I was looking for some alternative investment. And then I like wines. And then I was looking on the internet and I had a look on different websites. And I make some, you know, have a look at your curricula, all the website, the different projects, and I say, okay, let's try. But it was the first time I invest in wine.
You haven't invested in other
No,
types of
never.
Like,
it was the first time, and then yeah, it was a success, as we said. So yeah, I'm still there.
A successful wine funder and a happy successful wine funder.
Yeah.
Great.
And then, sorry, the next step, Annick was asking questions. I was interested to know how you found us, wine funding, because we didn't know. Yes.
Nobody told me about you. It was really a good try, I say.
And the other question Annick was asking is your experience when you
yeah, I think it's part of the success of the experience, because it's quite. I mean, everything is easy on the website. I think the projects are very well presented, and everything is quite easy to have an account on the website, and then to have a look on the different projects, to choose to invest. So everything is quite, you know, easy, so and comfortable. So and it's part of the experience, I think. So yeah, and now I'm quite really confident in the choice of the project. So sometimes it's quite quick. Okay, it seems good, so let's go. And yeah, I think now it's
So you didn't know about wine funding before investing?
No, not at all.
And you said that what was reassuring for you. Thank you very much, because I think we're trying to be as transparent as possible with what we present, just to maybe illustrate for people who have not been able to go on the website. You can see my screen. This is all the projects that we are funding, and if you scroll down, you see the projects that have been funded, and then you recognize some of your investment. Yes. There we can see Clarisse. We were talking about
Bot,
Montplaisir, Bot in the Valley. Where's Bot? Yeah, the young couple, very nice. Arnaud, yeah. She's. When I said I used the word serial wine funder.
You really did invest in all the projects.
No, not all of them. No, really not. No, I'm really do a selection, but yeah. And what is interesting also is that it's quite easy to discuss with Maxime or with the team, and we are always in contact by email for the follow-up of the project, for the follow-up of the delivery, and everything is, it's, for me, it seems to be very transparent and easy to.
And something that we have started actually in the lockdown, you were talking about lockdown, Annick. Something we have started, I wanted to do since the beginning, but I think it was a good opportunity to start it now, is the live testing we organize. And Agnès is a regular participant in the live testing. Thank you very much. The idea of the live testing is to a moment to share with the wine grower, the winemaker, who will taste the wine, and the participants, like you are now participating to this webinar, can order the wine in advance. So they receive the wine at home, and they can taste the wine and share the impressions with the winemaker, ask questions about why it tastes like this, which blocks it's coming from. Then we share the screen to show the different parcels and where the vine is where the grape was harvested, and we explain the process of winemaking. And these webinars are very successful. We have one every week now on Thursday at 7 p.m. French time. And next week, actually, we have one in English. So everyone here is welcome to join us. It's a beautiful wine estate in the Languedoc, and it's owned by a British couple who decided to leave London to go to the south of France. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But maybe some of you know. Apparently, it's not that bad. I received an email from someone in London who said that they have in England a nice time in sunny England. And he said, I'm using sunny and England in the same sentence. But generally, they were quite happy to move to the south of France. And we will have this live tasting next week with them. We will also have a master of wine with a British woman famous in the wine industry, who has written lots of books about Languedoc, the south of France region, where this estate is located. And the idea is to share 3 wines, and you can order the wines. If you order by the end of the week, you will receive it early next week. It will have enough time to settle, and you can enjoy the wines together with us during the tasting next week. So you will see all the details on the wine funding web page, which is here. Can you see? No, I'm not showing. Sorry. Here, if you go on live tasting here, you see my mouse. You go on live tasting. You have the different tastings that you can register, and it's the one about Mas Gabriel. Here, it's on Thursday. Sorry, I need to switch to English. So you can have, of course, the site in English, and the tasting with Mas Gabriel it will be in English. This is the one we have next week. Mas Gabriel. So you sign up here and you buy the wine here. Very easy, very straightforward. And the wines are delicious. And this is the kind of wine that I love. It's a wine that reflects the personality of the people.
Right. That's actually the perfect transition to see if people have questions. So if you want to ask questions, maybe use the chat function, which is in the middle of your Zoom screen. And I was sent one question, which says, are there typically different returns between wine geographies and countries? Actually, so for instance, the New World versus the Old World.
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, we have so far invested only in French vineyards. We have looked at wine estates in many different countries because maybe I didn't say it in the introduction, but before turning on the dark side of finance, I worked in the wine industry. I was a winemaker. And I worked in Australia, in California, in Chile, and in South Africa. So all these countries are a very good connection because I've worked for 10 years in the wine industry. In production, I was a winemaker on the floor, and then I managed wine estate and wine merchants. So I quite know the wine industry, and we have lots of project requests from different countries. Some countries, it's a bit difficult for example, Argentina, a beautiful country in terms of wine and potential with high returns, but high risk. So it's a bit difficult to offer now at this time. I don't think investors from Europe would see it positively to go to invest in an exotic country like this. However, we have a very interesting project in other countries that we are working on, in Italy, in Spain. And the return are not necessarily much higher than it would be in France, because if we compare the same type of project, if it's a company that owns land, that has assets that are tangible, that we can take security on. We're working on a project now in the Loire Valley where we take a mortgage on the vineyard. So it's really securing the investors. We have a mortgage on a vineyard that has a market value that is completely transparent and has not moved and has actually slightly moved up in the past few years. So it's very safe. In this case, I think we have not more risk, so there's no reason to have a higher return. But the project I was mentioning, the startup in the US, it's also because it's in the US that you have a higher valuation on the exit, I think. So that's why probably the return on this project, hopefully, if it works out, will be good for investors, because I think the exit on the valuation, if we continue with the same trend, will be quite interesting for investors.
Right, I've got a second question. When you have a return in bottles, what is the reference for the price per bottle?
Yeah, good question. Thank you. The return we calculate on the public price of the wine. Like for the wine run, I think I was explaining maybe a little bit quick. The 8% you get is the equivalent of a bond that you should have in order to buy the wine at a public price by using only the interest of the bond. I don't know if you follow me. You have a bond that's generating 8%. With this 8%, you can buy wine of this estate at the public price. So the 8% is calculated on the public price. And the reason why we can have companies accepting this high return, because it's quite high, and the wine estate, they can finance themselves at the bank at below 2%. So if they accept this, it's because actually for them, it's costing much less. Because we work on a conversion price that is much lower. Basically, you compensate the debt. I mean, the company has a debt they owe you money to give you the interest, and you accept to receive wine in exchange for this debt.
Great.
Yeah.
I think it's clear. I mean, just as a reminder, so if you have a question, please put it in the chat and I'll be able to ask Maxime. The next one is, could you please give us your top 3 tips when investing in wine?
Top 3 tips when investing in wine. First one is invest in wine funding. No, but I think it's important to invest, I think, in a wine that you like, that you think you will like. I think it's the most important. It's a passion investment. So I think this is something that when you receive the wine, you want to be pleased, because you don't want to invest in a wine estate and receive the wines that then you don't like, because when you receive the wine, you will be unhappy. So I think it's important to have a connection with the wine estate that you're investing in. I think the storytelling, the way they work, the personality of the owner, all these elements are something that you want to connect with. I think it's important to have, and that's why we offer a diversity of wine estates, because some people will connect with this one estate and not with this one, and for other people it will be the other way around. So I think it's a personal investment, and it's good to have a good relationship. I think that maybe the first criteria, and then when you connect with them is, and when you think, oh, this is something I would really like to be part of, then I really encourage you to go into the details of how the wine or the investment is structured, and what is the interest, what are the guarantees, and go into the details. We have lots of detail on the website. It's fully transparent. You can read a lot about how it's structured. If it's not clear, you ask us questions, we will answer, we will try to answer quickly. But I think this is important. It's not because it's a passion investment that you do from the heart, but it should not be also a rational investment that you do with your brain. But is that good enough for criteria?
No, that's great.
Second is you love the wine, and third one is make sure it's financially sound.
Great. There's one more. I guess the industry has developed since you started a few years ago. Who are the big players at the moment by region? Bordeaux, Côte-du-Rhône, and so on.
It's true that it's changing. We've experienced in the past few years what we call a moment of Bordeaux bashing. I don't know if some of you have experienced it, some of wine lovers. the Bordeaux has been bashed basically, and it's there was a moment stop the Bordeaux bashing. I think this was quite a trend because people wanted to experiment wines from other regions that are less status in terms of label and complexity and price as well. Because sometimes the wine from Bordeaux, the Grand Cru especially, can be quite pricey, and it's not the type of bottle that you can drink every day. Although in Bordeaux there are lots of wine. Behind me, if you see, we have wines from a wine estate that was financed in Bordeaux. So we have wines here. The one at the back, the white wine, is something like €7, and it's a delicious white wine. And the one in front is a Pomerol. Pomerol is a more premium appellation that is still at a very reasonable price. It's €35 for a Pomerol of this quality that is handmade. It's very reasonable. So in Bordeaux, we have people like this who are actually changing the rules of the game and making something that is not a traditional Bordeaux. So I think you're right. The question is right. The producers have changed also because of the customer demand. The taste of the customer is for wine that is less oaked, that is fresher, that is lighter in alcohol, and the wines have definitely evolved in this direction, which I think is a good direction to go in, because these wines that were before too heavy and too rich in alcohol and too rich in oak tannins and everything, nobody wants it anymore. So I think it's great that we see this change. Does it answer your question?
I mean, I think it does. What region is good value to invest in these days?
What region is good value to invest in?
Yeah.
I think it mostly depends on the project. In each region, you can have a project that is profitable for the investor, or one that is. I don't think the criteria is the region. I think it's more per project, depending on the price that you pay. But if we want to answer, this is very large. I mean, I don't want to be too specific about the region, but maybe, for example, if you invest in Burgundy, where the price of the land has reached record high price, even in the top appellation of Bordeaux, the price of the vineyard is so high that it's not clear if it can still go higher. So I think there will be some stabilization on the price. So if you invest in the land in Burgundy and Bordeaux, you might not experience the same growth that has been experienced in the past 20 years if you invest in the land. But like I said, we sometimes invest in the company who is doing other things. And we have just structured a deal where we raised €1 million for one producer in Burgundy. And the return is over 6 years at 6%. With very limited risk, and it's in Burgundy, but it's because we're not investing in the land. So I think the question applies probably if you look at investing in the land, then you need quite a large amount of money. But if you invest in the project that we structure, it's different. It will not be based on the region. It will be based mostly, I think, on a project.
Great. So unless there are any other questions, I would say thank you to Agnès, Charlotte, and Maxime. And maybe we could finish it off by Maxime telling us his favorite wine.
My favorite wine? I don't think there's a name to put on my favorite wine. I think it's more the wine that tells a story of the place where it comes from and of the people who made it. And these are the wines that I love the most. And that's why I love to connect with the winemakers. And to understand how they work, and to when you have someone who is working, a winemaker working with passion and respect for the land, you can really feel the connection with the land. It's something that is very special, and I think it's what I'm looking for in the wine. It can be wine at 10, 15 euros, or it can be wine at 200 euros that can give you emotion. And I think that's what we are looking now for in life, most people. Is to share emotions with the people who produce it, and also with the people that we share the bottle of wine with. And that's what ultimately the wine funders, I think that's what they do when they share the wine with their friends. They actually also sharing the emotion about the connection they have with the wine estate, and they actually transmitting this emotion. And this is, I think wine is about sharing. So I think the best wines are the wine that have a story to tell that you can connect with.
Right. And I thought that was it, but actually I do have another one now. How about biodynamic wines? Do you see good interest in this style?
No, yeah, definitely. Actually, like this wine at the back is a biodynamic wine. Actually, it's right, a good example. I think it's a very good practice. I don't want to. It's not a criteria to select wine on wine funding. We have wine that are not organic, and sometimes producers that work very diligently and very carefully in the vineyard, they work in a better and more sustainable way. Even if they're not certified, than other people who are certified just because they tick the boxes of the certification. So I don't think it's a criteria for us, but biodynamic, what I see as an interest is that it forces the wine grower to be much more attentive and careful about the details and to spend a lot more time in the vineyard. It's very difficult to manage a vineyard with biodynamic because you cannot put a chemical product. And you have to be very careful. You have to detect whenever there's a little bit of disease that comes. And everything that you do when you work on the soil and you let plants and you let biodiversity come in, it will create a more stable environment. This is a problem of industrial agriculture, that we have specialized too much. And in some places, you only see vineyard. And this is the paradise for pests, because if a pest comes and he managed to develop on a vineyard, then he will call his friend, come guys, there's a lot of vines here we can go on. And this is actually the danger of the industrialization and standardization of agriculture. And with biodynamic, it forces people also to bring back the balance between different plants and different species. You need insects. If you use products that kill everything, all the insects, some of the insects are good because they protect the vines from other insects that are pests. So I think this biodynamic is very important and has very good effect in the vineyard already, because you have a more balanced plant and a healthy plant and with less chemicals. There's no chemicals in biodynamic wine.
Great. And so there's one more. Do you think people's preferences over which wine they like vary because of trend, fashion, or is there something else? Perhaps it has to do with different demographic groups, countries getting into wine.
Perhaps it has to do with what, sorry?
It has to do with different demographic groups or countries getting into wine. So basically, what makes people go into certain wines over others? Is it a trend? Is it a fashion? Or is it where people are coming from?
Yeah, I think it's got to do with all of what is said. Definitely, there's a trend. Like I was saying, we're moving away from wine in the 90s that were full body, heavily oaked and high alcohol, very lot of brightness, to fresher wines, because I think it's in the trend. People want something that is just fresher. We want to drink lighter meal, to eat lighter meals, drink lighter wines. It's a problem, for example, for a wine that is beautiful. It's Sauterne, the sweet wine. It's a fantastic wine, but the problem is that people don't want sugar. And there's a lot of sugar in Sauterne. There's a lot of flavors. It's beautiful. It's some of the most magnificent wine you can get, but you only want to drink a little bit, and it's a problem because the trend is moving away from this type of thing. So I think definitely it has to do with the trend. A good trend, a very positive that we can see now emerging in the past 5-10 years is rosé. Rosé wines, the wine from Provence, for example, are wines that are very fashionable because it's easy to drink. Everybody likes it. It's not heavy. You can drink it without eating. Also, you can drink it in an aperitivo, on a cocktail like champagne. Also, but rosé, I think it has changed a lot in terms of trend.
Great. So I think that was it. So thank you again to Agnès, Charlotte, and Maxime. Thank you for everyone attending. And I hope you can go, first of all, invest in a project in wine funding and then have a good glass of wine tonight.
Excellent.
Thank you very much. Bye.
And we will send you a promotional code to invest on wine funding so that you can have a discount.
Super.
Okay. Thank you, Annick. Thank you, Agnès, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
evening and a good wine. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.